Hello and welcome back to yet another fishing video. Today I'm actually fishing a lake that I've never been to before, I've never seen before. I have no idea what to expect, but you know one thing, I've got an ultralight in my hand and I'm ready to go fishing. I'm good with whatever species wants to play today. Ideally I would love to find some big bluegill, but I don't necessarily know. The only way to find out is to go fishing, so let's go fishing. There's a fish right up next to the dock. He's coming to me. Oh, just a little bass. We're on the board though, my friends. A little tiny bass on that donkey tail junior. He was right up next to a little dock post. Gonna turn him loose. There's one. This has got to be a gill, I think. Oh wait, is that a crappie? That's a nice little crappie right there. And he's still in his spawning colors. That fish looks like that's a male black crappie. Just love when they look like that. See ya, buddy. This lake is pretty overgrown with lots of gunky weeds. It's definitely an interesting body of water. There's a fish. That's a crappie, I think. Just a little tiny crappie. Definitely an interesting body of water. Lots of lily pads. Little black crappie. Lots of lily pads, lots of kind of real stringy grass. Very dirty water. So not quite like what I'm used to fishing. You know, I've fished a couple lakes like this, but for the most part, most of the lakes I fish are a lot clearer water. Based on the water clarity and the time of season, I really don't think I need to fish deep at all, but I'll definitely keep an eye on my graph just in case I ever see schooling fish. There's one. That's another crappie. Yeah, I think the crappie are gonna be up next to the lily pads is what it's looking like. And that one's not terrible. He's better than the last one, that's for sure. And that one looks like it's actually full of eggs. Like this fish probably hasn't even spawned yet. I can just see big old belly and it's loaded. So I'm gonna send that one back home. Not a very big fish, but a nice chunky fish. About ready to repopulate the system. Not that it probably needs it. It's looking like there's probably a pretty good population of small fish is what I'm thinking. Slowly but surely learning a few things. Fish around the lily pads, catch a few slabs. There's one. I felt that bite kind of just shakes down my line. That's a lot better crappie. That's a lot better crappie. There we go. That's a lot better crappie, I think. It almost is acting like a bass, but I'm pretty darn sure it's a slabby. Yeah, holy smokes. Holy smokes, boys. That's the kind of slabby we want in our lives. I don't know why I'm not using my net. That's an absolute chunker. Looky there, boys. That right there's a beaut. This is why you explore new waterways, my friends. Find stuff like that. I was just thinking maybe this place is gonna be loaded with a bunch of dinky ones, but no. That's a grown mama. I'm debating keeping this fish, but I think I'll just go ahead and send her home. I still have some crappie in my freezer I need to eat. See a big girl. I'm not the type to just keep loading and loading my freezer. I'm more the type where if I have it in my freezer, I don't really worry about keeping fish. I feel like some people have just so, oh my gosh. What just happened? Did that fish literally just eat it again? Okay, this is absolutely bonkers. I swear that's the same fish I just released. Maybe it's not, I don't know, I swear it is. I literally had my donkey tail junior in the water like 8 inches. I start pedaling away. This fish comes up and slams it while I'm trying to talk to you. What? It's like this fish wants to go home and get fried up. See ya, bud. I mean, maybe it was a different fish. I don't know. I guess I'll just dip my jig in the water again. That's one way to do it. It's one strategy. Like literally my jig was just hanging in front of my kayak, like 8 to 10 inches under the water. My rod just doubles over. I'm like, what? Anyways. What I was trying to say is some people like to load their freezer, always have a bunch in there, but for me, I just don't eat fish enough to where I feel the need to have that many in my freezer at any given time. So as much as I would have loved to keep that crappie because it would have been some really nice fillets, I think I've got like 10 crappie in my freezer and that's enough for me. So let's get back to fishing. Good, things are looking up. Things are most certainly looking up. And there you go. And there's another little crappie, man. The crappie are loaded up on these lily pads. I dig it, I dig it, I dig it. Just a little guy. Much smaller than the last one, but I'll take it. Seems like the crappie are kind of in all stages. You know, you've got some that are spawning. You've definitely got some that seem like they're pre-spawn. Like this one right here is a spawner. This one's black as it gets. So this is a male. probably protecting a bed. So you've got fish in all stages is what I'm thinking. I feel like there's probably some post-spawn, pre-spawn, and spawners. And you'll get that this time of year, you know. A lot of people, when they think the fish are spawning, whether it's, bass or bluegill or crappie, they're like, oh, the fish are spawning. But the reality is, they're not all spawning at the same time. They kind of go in waves. So you'll have some spawning and some in pre and some in post. And I think that's what we've got going on right now. Beautiful black crappie, my friends. See you, buddy. There's one. Ooh, there's another bruiser. That's another bruiser. Oh, I think he might have been behind something. I don't think he's as big as I thought. Yeah, he's not as big as I thought. I think he was behind like a piece of vegetation or something. When they get behind that stuff, there's just added resistance. And I was like, oh man, it's gonna be another 12 to 14 incher, but no. It's probably about a 9.5, 10 incher. Healthy little crappie though. There's clearly an abundance of them right here. They like this lily pads, I'm telling you. Yes. I love that feeling so much. Oh, that's a big one. It's a big black one. Look at that. Oh my gosh. That is a freaking beauty. God, I love that. Look at that fish. He's so dark. That is prime time tuxedo right there, my friends. I mean, just look at that fish. He's so dark. Black crappie during the spawn. They get about as cool looking as any fish. I love the fact that the spawn brings out such neat colors in certain species. The black crappie, man, it never fails to make me happy. See ya, buddy. As far as my technique goes, it's very simple. So I'm using a little 1/32 ounce chartreuse mule jig, and then I'm using a little donkey tail junior in that true chartreuse color. Now, chartreuse is a notoriously good color for crappie, so I feel like there's no reason to change there. And in this dirty water, it kind of gives them something to hone in on. But all I'm doing is I'm casting it up against the grass, these little lily pad edges, and I'm just kind of drifting it down. I'm really not working it too much, but after it gets down there towards the bottom, I'm just fishing shallow, so it only takes, a couple seconds and then it'll get down to the bottom. Then I'll just twitch it up a few times and then I'll just repeat that. A lot of people see the paddle tail on a donkey tail junior and they think that you need to swim it or, fish it real fast, but you really don't. You can let that bait do a lot of the work for you, especially on these light jig heads. They take such a long time to sink to the bottom that you get a lot of action just sitting there on the fall. And I feel like that really drives these fish crazy, especially these crappie. So that's all I'm doing, super simple. That one was sitting right at the base of that lily pad stem, and the second it hit the bottom, this fish nailed it. So that fish is obviously actively spawning. It's really dark. It's a male crappie, probably guarding a bed. And that's actually like the third or fourth crappie I caught out of this little pocket. But again, I think my cameras must have been messed up. Either way, pretty simple technique. You don't have to do anything too complicated. You just have to have patience. Most of these fish have been sending rattles down my line. They're hitting it so hard. That being said, it is important to watch your line because that's not always the case. Obviously, these pad stems offer a ton of protection for these crappie, and they seem to love them because the second I got off these pads and got onto a bare bank, I didn't catch squat. There's one. I knew there'd be fish in here. Is that a bluegill? I think it's a big freaking bluegill. Oh, it's a big ol' hybrid. Ooh, look at that big ol' hybrid right there. Is that a warmouth bluegill hybrid or is that just a straight warmouth? Oh my gosh, look at that fish. I'm actually not 100% sure what species this is. I think it might be a bluegill warmouth hybrid. It's an absolute beefcake. Heck yes. I thought I was gonna find crappie up in that little hole, but I found something even better. As you can see, this fish has a much larger mouth than a typical bluegill. So I know he's got some warmouth in him. I can't tell if he's a pure warmouth or a warmouth bluegill hybrid. Either way, it's a beauty. See ya, bud. There's one. Kind of coming towards me, can't tell. Oh, another big old sunfish, my goodness. Just a pure beefcake. My goodness, it's another freaking bruiser of a hybrid. Look at that fish, look at how cool those broken lines look. The coloration on these fish is outstanding. These are definitely warmouth bluegill hybrids is what these are. They are outstanding, and I think they might be spawning right now. Healthy population of crappie, plus some really nice bruisers along the way. I'm loving this, my friends. See ya, bud. Well, here we are a little over an hour into our trip, and I gotta say this one stretch of lily pads has been very productive for crappie. That being said, this lake is pretty big and there's a lot of water that I still want to explore, so I think I'm gonna take a little bit of break from these lily pads and I'm gonna go see if I can replicate the pattern, go find some more crappie elsewhere, but who knows, maybe I'll go fish for some other species as well. All in all, I'm super pleased. You know, this is why you go and try new bodies of waters, because you never really know what you're gonna find, and sometimes you strike gold, sometimes, you know, you don't have a great time, and you know, I've had some of those trips this year too, and that's okay. But you're never gonna go find new fish if you don't try, so you gotta try. There's one. What is this? Oh, it's a chunky little crappie right there. I think what I've learned is that not all lily pads are created the same, because I fished a good stretch and didn't have any bites. Just found this one though, so I trust that we're about to find some more. There's one. Another crappie, another spawning male. It's a nice one. This one's about the twin of the one I just caught. All right, chill out, buddy, chill out. Chill out. Okay. That's pretty much how you want to hook them though, right through the nose. Gave little buddy a nose ring. All right, healthy little crappie. See ya, bud. The thing I don't really like as much about this spot is it's got a little bit more really junky grass, and I'm thinking that might be why the crappie are kind of avoiding this a little bit more. It's definitely a slower area. That first stretch of pads basically was just pads. Had some other grass in the water, but it was more submerged. This stuff forming a mat, it's obviously just a little bit more choked out with vegetation. And I have a feeling that the crappie have a harder time clearing the bottom because it's just a little bit more grassy here. And they need to be able to get down there on the bottom and find a spawning ground. And with all this kind of sloppy grass, it probably just makes it a little bit more challenging for them. All these beds, and I literally saw one little bluegill cruise through here. It just seems so early for them to be done. There's one. It's a nice pulling fish, man. He's not that big, but geez Louise. She's kind of fat. That's why she's pulling so hard. Just a fat girl. Not a very long fish, but a nice little fighter, so that's what I'm after today, is the fight. Not looking for meat, just looking for fights, man. And this fish gave it. See ya, bud. I will say this, and this is definitely a tip that I have that I'm a big believer in, and I've had historical success with. Anytime you're fishing, you know, vegetation in general, but definitely lily pads, the points of the lily pads, I feel like, are always like that high traffic area, because you've got a corner, which represents an ambush point for the fish. And if you've noticed, if you've paid attention, you would have noticed that I've caught a lot of fish on the little point of the lily pad system, because you got an abundance of lily pads right here. The fish could be anywhere, and there's gonna be fish pretty much everywhere within these. However, this point right here and then that opposite point, those are gonna be those really good little pinch points for the fish to sit and ambush prey. A good percentage of the crappie I've caught today have come on either like the main point of the pad system or some kind of like little interior cove area. There he is. I thought I had one. He kind of just really lightly picked it up and started swimming with it. And I had a little bit of a delayed hook set, but I hooked him really good. So fortunately this fish held on. Yep, what did I say? This looked like a high percentage area, and it turned out to be exactly that. See ya, bud. So here's the thing. I caught a crappie way back there on the point of these pads, but then I went all this stretch, didn't catch a single crappie. And then you get to another area that's kind of a point, and it has a little cut right here, and voila, catch another crappie. So clearly in this abundance of pads, the fish are using specific little sections. You can't tell me there's not a crappie right there. There he is. Oh baby, that was a great bite. God, we're just putting a hurting on him today, my friends. That's another decent one. That's another decent one. He fought hard. Some of these fish are fighting really hard for their size. It's kind of impressive. You know, crappie aren't necessarily the hardest fighting fish in the world, I would say. But fish even this size are putting up a good fight today. They're very feisty. See you, buddy. My friends, when it comes to lily pads, if you've got only a limited time, pick those high percentage areas. It's okay to fish the entire thing. I mean, there's usually going to be fish everywhere, but in this case, those fish were in those high percentage spots only. Well, I gotta say, I do love this hoodie. It is a Pigeon Hill Brewery hoodie. Actually, one of the owners of Pigeon Hill watches these videos. Hi, Chad. And he gave me this sweatshirt. And this is a brewery based in Muskegon, Michigan. So if you're ever in Muskegon, Michigan, go check it out. They've got some great beers. But more importantly, their owner, Chad, watches these videos and he's super cool. And I would consider him a friend. So if you're ever in Muskegon, make sure to support Pigeon Hill because they're awesome. As awesome as this sweatshirt is, though, I'm gonna take it off because I am getting hot. As much fun as I've had today catching crappie, it seems like as the sun gets higher in the sky, the fishing is getting a little bit slower for crappie. So I'm gonna take that as a sign to change things up and try something different. I'm actually planning to make a second video, so make sure to click subscribe below if you haven't already and stay tuned for that. That all being said, this Donkey Tail Junior, I used the same one all day and I absolutely wrecked the crappie. As I mentioned several times, the lily pad bite was where it was. These fish were in a mixed position. Some were pre-spawn, some were post-spawn, and a lot of them were actively spawning. But one thing is for sure, the crappie were on fire today and it was an absolute blast. And note to self, I'm gonna come back to this lake because it's awesome. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.